After a 12-year hiatus, we are back at Summit Point Raceway just outside of Washington, D.C. in West Virginia, which honestly is one of the most scenic areas on the entire Lemons schedule. Now, the last time we were at Summit, we were on the little itty-bitty Shenandoah circuit. Since then, we've moved up to the big track, and personally, we're all a little bit older, a little bit wiser, but we haven't lost any of our joie de vivre.
You know, life is shit.
Now, of course, we had this race planned long before the news of Pit Race being sold to some developers and plans to tear it down and allegedly build a data center, presumably for more important business like crypto mining and AI processing.
Coming across the stripe, unbelievable! Stephen Hawking in that custom-built electric chair still out front, holding off the pack at 202 miles an hour.
In any case, the timing was fortunate because a lot of the racers who come to Summit Point are regulars at Pit Race, so we are glad to give them another venue for Lemons racing, and they seemed thrilled about the whole situation. They were really happy for the owners of Pit Race and their successful sale. One team even brought a celebratory piñata. Now, the good news is we have a replacement race for Pit Race, but like everybody on the internet, I'm going to make you scrub through the entire video to find out where it is.
That's a fate worse than death.
The judge lineup at this race was Judge Randy, Tom, Al, and Chief Lemons Justice Eric, and they were immediately welcomed by this excellent bribe of an entire go-kart from the rookie team Phoenix Racers. Now, it would have been a little difficult to take this as an airplane carry-on, but fortunately, Judge Al had driven in from Pittsburgh in a rented minivan, so he got the go-kart.
We implemented a few new penalties, with one of the highlights being the Evel Knievel stunt cycle penalty, where you have to successfully jump your teammate with the Evel Knievel stunt cycle before being allowed back on the track. Now, if you remember these things, you had no idea where it was going to go when you let it go, but the DS Racing guys with their Mustang, they managed to make it go in relatively short order, but their engine had other ideas about longevity.
Now, as we said before, West Virginia has a lot of natural beauty. Now, included with that is some wildlife. So there's deer in the area, but the track has measures to keep them away from the racing surface, and according to the staff, it just isn't a problem. So when Team Racing Someone Else's Mistake and their Ford Mustang brought a whole bag of deer whistles to mount on cars, they decided, you know what, that's probably not even necessary. They didn't put one on their own car, and the next thing you know, they had smashed into a deer.
We had lots of mechanical carnage, which is weird because the cars are all super conventional. Like, for example, this Kia Spectra 5 with a custom turbo setup. No idea why this didn't work flawlessly. And then there was the rookie team, the Brake Fast Club, whose neon lived up to the team name when the turbo setup burst into flames. Maybe turbos are not an awesome idea, or they're the best idea.
The Miss Fortune Cookie Mini Cooper team bribed the judges with a great selection of mini stuff, mini bagels, mini liquor bottles, mini beers, and then during the race they experienced a different kind of mini stuff. And their paddock neighbor was Italian Job Racing in their own Mini Cooper. Italian Job also occupied with mini stuff.
Not quite mini stuff, but kind of in the same kind of stuff problems. Atomic Dirt showed up with their Audi TT with a turbo that was already absolutely destroyed. They sourced a replacement turbo from what else? BMW parts, because why not just slap two parts from unlike German manufacturers together? They managed past tech, they managed to make the car run a little bit. Good job. We saw the most excellent Mitsubishi Starion based Back to the Future DeLorean replica from Faux Lorian Racing, sporting even more details from the movies, but they were ultimately let down by its swapped-in General Motors 3800.
Are you telling me that you
Swapped a Buick 3800 V6 into
a DeLorean?
And then there was the GTI of Highway to Schnell doing VW stuff. I like how, like a Toyota just has one button that says on. Yeah. And then this has all this stuff. And there was also some Mitsubishi stuff happening in the paddock of Team Ask Us About Our Purity Test Score, although a huge shout out to team member Becky for bringing food to the staff all weekend.
The Subaru wagon of the Carroll County gangsters was suffering a significant fuel leak. Ultimately, it was determined they would have to replace their entire fuel tank, and they took it one step farther, and I think for the first time ever, did a mid-race fuel cell swap. They found some dude with a race shop in Virginia who sold them one for $200. They installed it during the race. They got back on the racetrack. That was hella sweet.
Now, even the normally reliable Japanese cars were not exempt from all of this carnage, as Jug Handle Racing discovered. They brought an excellent construction team to BS inspection, but during the race, they soon had to refocus their attention to reconstructing their blown-up Honda Civic.
And speaking of Hondas, here is the 98 Kia Sophia of Montgrass, which of course has a Honda K-Series that they swapped into the car in the middle of the race at CMP. Now, here at Summit, they had a hub issue that was complicated by the fact that they're running some kind of custom axle /CV/ hub adapter system that connects the Honda stuff with the Kia. Anyway, they had to make one from scratch during the race, which they did, and got back on the track.
And then there was the famous Tuna Chuckers and their Volvo 122 Amazon. They brought a great and very timely theme based on the heist at the Louvre Museum in Paris.
Thieves stole priceless jewels from the most famous museum in the world, the Louvre.
The Tuna Chuckers had all of the same high-tech gear as the actual thieves, including yellow safety vest, angle grinders, and a ladder. That's some real Ocean's 11. As for the Volvo, let's just say, maybe it's not the best choice for a getaway car.
You know, life is shit.
It wasn't all misery at Summit. Included in the not quite as blowed up version of the roster was the team Saab in their 79 Saab 99, which had a new engine from a Saab 900 just days before the race. As usual, Saab guys make Saab car work Saab-like.
Saab.
Elsewhere in Sweden, Moot Point Racing's Volvo-based contraption is, well, here it is. And over in Germany, Never a Good Night brought their mostly stock 2.0 powered Jetta and plenty of German pride. Is German pride good?
The Baltimoreans brought their llamas with hats themed entry, and the whole family got into the lemon spirit. You look pretty good. We always love a RoboCop theme, but many bonus points if your RoboCop theme includes the correct first-gen Taurus cop car.
And by the way, the original 6,000 Sucks from the RoboCop movie is for sale as we record this. It could be yours. Wanted to give a big shout out to the Andy Griffith themed Rust Cartel Ford Fairlane. Now this is a car we first saw as a Lemons rally car. They put a cage in it, they went racing, they won the first Index of Effluency at Pit Race. They are retiring the car after Summit Point, and they're going to make it back into a street car. That's hella sweet. We're really glad it's been part of Lemons.
There were a couple of Saturns at Summit, including this 98 SL2 from the Left Lane Legends, and this 93 SL1 from Two Lemma Racing. This team brought a whole denim/cowboy theme, and in the tradition of the denim-covered Lincoln Town Car we saw a while back at Road Atlanta, it was better known as the Jinkin' Jown Jar. This Saturn team added denim racing stripes and accessories to their Saturn, which of course they called the Jatter. Now we hope at a future race we'll see a head-to-head between the Jinkin' Jown Jar and the Jattern, and we hope that these cars inspire more denim Lemons racers in the future. And possibly a Infinity Gene 35, a George Jown Victoria, or a Jupiter Charged Juick Jark Avenue.
Here's a rookie team called Mater Hater in their excellent Buick LeSabre. Now, why is this excellent? Well, while we appreciate fast Lemons builds and crazy Lemons builds, some of our favorites are exceedingly normal Lemons builds. This Buick definitely fit that bill. This car was abandoned by an acquaintance of one of the team members, and the team is based close to the track, so they decided, let's not overthink this. They grabbed the Buick, they added the safety gear, they took it to the track. Sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, just look at this thing. Are those snow tires?
Oh, would you look at that?
All right, here are your class winners.
Judge's choice went to TPF Racing and their Pepperidge Farm-themed Mercury Milan. Now, I'm sure everyone here remembers the Mercury Milan, which was a badge-engineered version of the Ford Fusion.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I don't.
For starters, a fairly plain sedan that is more likely to be seen at the Willow Pines retirement community in Northville, Michigan than, say, a racetrack, this thing, surprisingly okay. I mean, if you're in your 3 Series and you get passed by this thing, well, that's gonna be memorable.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
In fact, this thing was quick enough on track they actually racked up some black flags, which led to a summit-specific penalty. Judge Tom, who's local to the area, stumbled across a yard full of Buick Riatas. You guys know the famous Virginia Buick Riata hoarder.
I don't.
So, when the Milan ran off track for like the 3rd time, the team was instructed to go to the Riata yard and film a version of Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. Here's the result of that. So they got the judge's choice for bringing an unlikely racing machine and for absolutely nailing their penalty performance, which they'd probably just as soon forget.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
The special award was called the Failure of Equals Award, which is of course a reference to the famous and short-lived merger of equals between Mercedes and Chrysler. One of the peak machines from the Daimler-Chrysler era was the Chrysler Crossfire, which had a Mercedes SLK chassis and 3.2-liter V6, and some sort of, contemporary retro-inspired Art Deco-ish styling. But much like most of the Daimler-Chrysler merger itself, the Crossfire had some high points, low points, but most of all was just completely confusing. Silver Errors Racing brought this fine Crossfire, and they were celebrating the 100th birthday of the Chrysler Company, fittingly enough, with a cake and some 1920s inspired newsletters distributed through the paddock, retro outfits, kind of the whole bit. At the time they sold this, Chrysler was still using variations of the old Torque Flight, but the Crossfire instead got the Mercedes 722.6 5G Tronic, also known as the Wandler 5 Gang Automatique. Using German logic, instead of using normal bolts for the transmission pan gasket, the 5G Tronic uses a combination bolt and clamp system that makes it difficult to position the pan gasket, but surely created a 0.4 Newton meter sealing force advantage when it was brand new in 2004. 20 years later, it just makes a big leaky mess when you're trying to fix it in the middle of a lemons race and makes you wish you had a Torque Flight. In spite of those setbacks, the team stayed in theme all weekend and deservedly won the Failure of Equals Award.
On the subject of Daimler Chrysler, the I Got Screwed Award went to the 2009 Dodge Charger from the Folly from Mount Holly. Now, these modern Chargers also have roots in the merger of equals period. This car features some suspension design stuff from Mercedes sedans, but unlike the Crossfire team, this Charger team wasn't let down by the Mercedes stuff, but instead the Chrysler 5.7 Hemi V8, which was doing this all weekend. Now, this is after the team had scrambled to finish the car the entire week leading up to the race, basically pulling the heads and rebuilding everything, only to show up and have this thing smoke like a 1920s flapper. To try to fix the issue, the team consulted the internet, other Lemons teams, local Hemi experts.
It ain't got no gas in it.
And they couldn't figure out the problem. They completed a grand total of 1 lap, finished last, and they got screwed.
Heroic fix went to the Tactical Raccoons. These are rookies who kicked off their inaugural race weekend with their Honda Civic by celebratorily bursting into flames. The fire was in the pits right next to the penalty box, and their pit neighbors, the Tuna Chuckers, rushed in with some extinguishers to help put out the fire. That was pretty great to see. What they found afterwards was that everything was crispy underneath the hood. Most teams would go home after a fire like that, but these guys looked at everything and said, yeah, we can find all that stuff. They managed to get it all back together. They managed to make the car run. They put it on the track for the last couple hours. That was heroic.
Organizer's choice went to one of our favorite new teams in recent Lemons memory, the Spontaneous Rodents. They are a big group of engineering students from Purdue University in Indiana. A little while back, they bought this Ford Escort from Savage Orchid Racing out in Colorado. Now, buying an already built Lemons car is often a good way to get started in Lemons, and Savage Orchid is a reputable bunch, but in the end, there's always a little bit of luck involved in finishing a race. Now, actually, the first issue this team faced was one that has affected both rookie and veteran Lemons teams alike. The good old forgot to put the hood pins in and smashing the out of the windshield. That was just the tip of the iceberg. The team then started experiencing shifting issues, and they Googled it, and it turns out weak shift forks is a known Escort ZX2 issue. In fact, it's a known in Lemons Escort ZX2 issues, because one of the first Google results was this 2014 Lemons forum post basically saying, don't race one of these without first reinforcing the shift forks. The team said, yeah, we wish we had read that before showing up at the track. But they were undaunted and proceeded to remove the entire transmission and weld reinforcements onto the shift forks. Then, while reinstalling the transmission, they slammed it accidentally into their radiator, poking a giant hole in it, which then had to come out and get patched. They finally reassembled everything by Sunday afternoon and were able to hit the track for the first time. Throughout all of that, they showed persistence, teamwork, and a complete unwillingness to complain about anything. All of that from a bunch of college kids. Well-deserved organizer's choice.
Halloween Meets Gasoline for the best theme, which comes with a $1,000 check, went to Lemons Legends, 3 Pedal Mafia, and Garage Heroes in Training, a combined effort, and their Airplane the Movie theme. They were in character during tech inspection, they were in character during the race, they were in character during the potluck, which they also hosted, they were even in character for the driver's meeting. You know, and I mean this in a complimentary way, this wasn't so much an airplane theme as it was loosely airplane-based chaos. It's good enough for Halloween Meets Gasoline.
Hip belts low and tight on your hips, shoulder belts right on your Hans, nice and tight before you go out. Nobody's using 1955 Chevy belts.
The Index of Effluency, the grand prize in Lemons, went to another Lemons legend, Sasha, who is best known for sawzalling the tops off of his Lemons cars. The road to the IOE started well before the race for Sasha and his Borsche AG team. First, they dug their old Sentra Lemons car out of the yard where it had been sitting for a decade or so. They didn't really do anything to it except put it on the trailer, and then they dug out their Buick Roadmaster tow vehicle, which had also been moldering in the same yard also for a decade. At a minimum, Sasha figured he should at least check the lug nut torque on the Buick, but after he checked the passenger side and everything was fine, he figured, man, all of these are gonna be good. Let's hit the road. You can imagine what happened next. Actually, well, the Buick's driver's side rear wheel did fall off. Thanks to the hubcaps and the rear wheel skirts, both the lug nuts and the wheel were all contained in the same general area where they were supposed to be. Sasha was able to simply jack the car up, put the wheel and lug nuts back on, and continue on to the track.
But shortly after they arrived, the Sentra's hibernation with just plain water in the block through, 10 East Coast winters caused some issues. The solution was to swap in another Sentra 1.6 liter that had previously done some duty, swapped into a Lemons Porsche 924. And amazingly, this worked, and the Borsche team even had enough time to help another Sentra team with their transmission issues. In spite of all that, Borsche managed to finish 58th out of 101 entries with their hacked-up Sentra and a mystery engine powering it. That was more than enough to secure the team its first ever IOE in 15 years of doing Lemons.
Hey, remember earlier in the video when we said what Pit Race's replacement was going to be in 2026?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Well, there are actually 2 replacements. We're going to go to Mid-Ohio and Nelson Ledges. Check out our website for more details. And here's Lemons in a nutshell.
You'll be swell.
be great. Gotta have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now. Honey, everything's coming up roses.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?